Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness. I'm here with Joel Stam today. Joel, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So Joel, tell us a little bit about your operation, where you farm, how many animals, all that kind of stuff, just to get us rolling.
Our family operates a dairy farm in Norwich, Ontario. We milk 100 cows. We have 3 A5 Lely robots, the Lely Vector, automated manure scrapers, the Discovery 120s. Everything is basically automated. Our design was to have 3 hours of labor for one person for that many cows in a day. And we've been able to accomplish that. And now we're just looking for other ways to make our project more efficient.
Awesome. So we're going to talk here primarily about the solar to start. So I'm going to load up here an image. I got to share my screen. All right, so here we are looking at your operation. So tell us a little bit about what we're seeing there in your operation.
So when we built in 2018, we designed the trusses to hold an extra 9 pounds per square foot of the solar weight. You're also losing your slide factor, so you have to add some more load for snow. So when the project came along, the right timing, we went ahead with it. We have 150 kilowatts, so 3 arrays of 50 kilowatt each with the inverters that you're seeing hanging by the soffits. And we originally designed it for 120 kilowatts, but by the time we made our design and got the prices had come down enough that we were able to use the same amount of money and get an extra 30 kilowatts of power out of it.
That's great. So when we look around in the countryside, you see those solar trackers, that have been around for 10 years. Those are like 10 kilowatts. So you're here at 150 kilowatts. Yep. So when you look at the overall energy use on your farm and the electricity use in particular, and then you look at your 150 kilowatts, what does that balance look like today?
Our base load is between 550 to 600 kilowatt hours a day. And on a really good summer day, our highest was 1400 kilowatts. So we're putting the excess onto the grid, and we're able to use the grid as our battery. So we're pulling it back at night and also on cloudy days. I will show you a graph a little later. And also, it was a bit of a surprise. What we're generating is during a really peak time. So we're getting 18.2 cents a kilowatt, and we're putting that on the grid. And when we're pulling it back, we're only having to pay 8 cents. So we're actually making that difference just by the time of use generation.
Right on. So, and I always find all the energy stuff, all the numbers. So when you have 150 kilowatt capacity and it runs for 1 hour, you generate 150 kilowatt hours. And so then you do that through the day. So you got like multiple hours of, the peak, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Yep. You're getting 150 kilowatt hours per hour. And so then over, 6 or 8 or 10 hours of peak generation, you get, like you said, 1,800 kilowatt hours, right? So it's all those numbers are always tricky for how we say it and whatever. So you're the 18 cents per kilowatt hour, and then 1,800 kilowatt hours per day. So what does that turn into? What's a daily revenue in terms of or an offset, the daily amount, the dollars amount of electricity that you generate? Do you have a number on that?
I don't exactly have that number. The generating, because you're generating and you're consuming what you're already generating. So it's and it's only been 10 months. So my hydro bill is about 3 pages long, and it's quite convoluted because you're also consuming what you're generating and exporting the excess. So yeah, my most I ever exported or generated in a day is 1,400 kilowatts, not 1,800.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
And the most I've ever generated in an hour is 150.4. I'm not sure why. I think it's the inverters that are holding us back, but and there's a lot of technology. I'm sure as an engineer you would know more. It's 150 kilowatt generating array, but it actually generates more, but your inverters are holding you back to the 150. So that way it maximizes your whole system.
Right on.
I know after 10 months, I have about a $5,000 credit. So getting into the winter months, I should be able to pull through with that credit. And then after February, where my full year is over, I start dropping the 12th month. So it's a rolling 12th month. So if you don't use your credits, you lose them. So at that point, we'll have to discuss whether we can start changing our natural gas appliances over to electric, just trying to consume more electricity that we're generating rather than losing the credits.
Right on. So the process that you're operating under, so that is that a net metering process?
Yes,
And so that's your contract then with Hydro One. You have a
yes,
net metering contract. So you're always generating when you're generating. When after you've replaced your on-site use, you're exporting excess to the grid, and then you get a credit. It's a paper credit for times that you're not generating. You're able to use that sort of that paper credit, right?
yes.
Okay. And as you said, then it's a 12-year reconciling. So obviously you generate more in the summer and less in the winter when there's snow and there's less solar and so on.
Yes. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how much electrical appliances, equipment, so on you have now. What do you have that's running electrical now? And then what do you foresee being able to additionally convert over to electrical as you continue to generate all this power?
Yeah, so being the automated dairy farm that we have, the Lely robots, which are of course electric. They have electric boilers for their own water use. Our manure collection is the Discovery 120s from Lely. They use batteries, so they're charging and using electricity, and also our vector feeding system. So the comm boxes, which loads the vector feeding system, are electric. And the only thing right now that we have with diesel is a loader tractor to fill the comm boxes. Our foreseeable future, unless they come out with electric loader, I'm not sure of the efficiency on that, only for half an hour a day, but we're looking into our other heatings, our water heating for the milk tank, putting that into electric boiler with floor heat. So removing natural gas, which would be about 10 or 12,000 a year dollars that we could transfer into electrical savings. And another risk that we have, we're not sure how much of a risk it is, but carbon taxes. There's no carbon tax on electricity, so we're trying to remove all the carbon taxes from our natural gases. And also what the price of electricity is going to be in the future. Now we don't have to worry about that.
What's your capacity to expand this as you move forward? So it looks like this is sort of on a, I don't know, is it southeast facing roof, or what's the orientation of this right now? And then how much more room do you have to grow? When you built this barn a few years back, did you anticipate solar? Did you think about the orientation to optimize that? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is facing south, and it's on a bit of an angle, so facing southwest, trying to get the afternoon suns. So we did locate it for the solar, trying to maximize the afternoon sun. This roof, as it is now, is pretty much maxed. I could do the front a little bit and the back a little bit, but in the future plans is to add on to the barn as we're able to milk more cows, and then add another array to that. And also the shop, which we built 12 years ago, but never did put solar on it, but is also engineered for solar. So that's another option.
Great.
And then for the really far-fetched future is putting a roof on the bunkers, just to eliminate all the rain on our feed. So we have more consistent dry matter, and putting solar on that as well.
Great. Did you, in your conversation, so you had to pick a solar vendor, and there's a bunch of people offering the services out there. What were some of the priorities that you put in picking a company to work with in developing this project? You integrated it into the barn design from the start. So was your solar company and your barn construction group, did they communicate well? Talk a little bit about that decision making and so on.
So our initial step was to work with the electrical company that built the barn, or that did electrical on the barn. And it was a local, also a friend. And he doesn't do a whole lot of solar himself, but knows a guy up in Kirkton that did solar and nothing but solar. So going with the experts in their fields and working with them. And so it was a three-way team. One did electrical work, one provided the installation and the solar. And also they have a company an offshoot company that does all the engineering and helped me with the claim work, because I worked through with Agriculture Clean Technology Adoption Program, which gave us a 50% grant. So they did all the paperwork, and by getting the contract, they took care of all the paperwork, and that was a 3-year process. That it's not for the faint of heart at all. It's working with federal government it's rewarding at the end. You get your project, but it's definitely a lot of steps.
Right. And is that, now that the project is done, like obviously a 50% grant on the capital cost makes it all, that's a generous opportunity that kind of motivates you to do it. Having done that, when you look at, for instance, if you had to put more solar in, would you wait for a grant to be available? Or would you say, actually, I'm just going to go for it because I want to do it now? With the payback and whatever, it's better to just get it done. So talk about the importance of grant versus doing it in your own time frame and getting the thing done quickly and so on.
I think the grant was very important for me to make that initial step, and also to get the financing. It's a benefit to that. But for an addition, I'd probably just go on my own. Now that the whole footprint is done, the system is in place, and knowing what I know, we could probably. So the payback was 10 years without a grant and 5 years with a grant.
Great.
After 5 years, we're going to be working with good returns and then reinvesting that into additional solar. But whether that grant is available, I think it's down to 30% now. And it's a huge process to get approved, and it's a very slow process. So if you want to have something done as an addition, I think it'd be quicker and more efficient to be done on your own.
Talk maybe a little bit about that, the financing side, lining up a lender, then the timing and so on. Like what worked, what was challenging? Were there any surprises in that process? Any warnings for people who are listening to this, or advice on how to make that go well, etc.?
Yeah, it was a bit of a stressful process, because every step of the application. So if you said in your application, you get approved, and then you need another letter of support from your finance. So you keep going back for this intangible project. At that point, could nothing happen for 2 years, and they're like, well, what's happening? Well, I don't know yet, but I still need another letter of approval. So at that point, they just said, okay, let's just finance for the whole project. And if you get it, you get it, and don't keep coming back for more approvals. So that worked out well. And then
So you just finance the whole cost, and then when the approval came in, I actually only needed half the borrowing.
Yeah, and then take that 50% grant and pay down your loan, and then we'll mortgage the rest.
Okay.
So, and then you got your approval, and then you have to pre-purchase your materials at certain prices, and then it goes onto your roof, and then you wait for Hydro One for approval. That could be another 10 months. So wow. It's not just the federal, it's also Hydro One is a bit of a slow process in a partner. And meanwhile, all your expenses are sitting on the roof, and then you have financing. It's all interest only, prime plus whatever, so you're paying 7 or 8%. We never counted on that for 2 years. So when I got my grant money back, it wasn't enough to cover the 50% anymore, because the project had moved around. And so it was a bit of a, I think you really have to have a good relationship, and we do have a good relationship with our vendor or finance. But it was stressful. There's a lot of unknowns, and sometimes they're a bit blue and they want to know what there is, and I don't have answers, and nobody seemed to have answers. So.
I think I'll just reiterate that point you made there, that non-energy generating period at the start is often a surprise for people. That
Yeah.
okay, we're ready to go and we're ordering stuff and so on, and then there's a long period of time before things get going. Whether it's for solar or this is for a biogas tour, whether it's for the biogas system, that period often exceeds people's expectations, and there's just money going out on interest and
Yeah,
no revenue coming in.
interest, and you're still paying electricity, so six, seven
Yeah,
thousand
right.
a month in the summer, it's, there's no return, plus you're still paying. And you have no control of when that end date is. And it could
Right.
be 2 months, it could be 6 months, but it's very stressful not knowing what that is.
And that's not a reason not to do a project, but it's a surprise that you had that I think we need to always bring that one to the front.
Yep.
That's an additional component. And sometimes like on innovation grants, so the clean tech program that you got, that's still an innovation program, still encouraging people to adopt, whether it's solar or biomass heat or whatever. That's partly why there are government grants, right? To enable people to get through that learning curve and to have lessons learned like this and so on. So,
Yep.
so that's kind of the advantage there, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't discourage anyone from going through the process. It's just, it's not for the faint of heart, and have a good team around you. Don't be alone in this project.
Okay, I want to go to the next picture here. So this is your tracker. Tell us, there's a lot of information here, and on the bus, they may not be able to see the details exactly. So just kind of tell us what we're looking at here.
So that's just a point in time of that day. So right at that point, I was generating 81 kilowatts. And also today's yield, the annual yield so far is 205 mega kilowatts. The monthly yield is something I always look at. I need about 19 to cover my own. So this is October. We're on the 16th of the month, so we're good. And then the graph at the lower. So if we look at October the 1st, we obviously had a rainy day. And then we had a sunny.
So those are days at the bottom of the chart there. Every line is a day and a night and a day and a night.
Yep. Yeah. So when it's raining, you're happy because your crops are getting water, but you're not generating in solar. So it's win-win.
Right. And so how often do you look at this? Like early on, you're really interested, you're watching everything. 10 months in now, how do you interact with something like this?
So this is just a screenshot. I have 6 screens in my barn office, and that's just one that shows all the time. Once in a while on a good day, we'll just peek and say, hey, how much we generate today? But yeah, definitely May, June, we're all excited. How much we're going to generate? We're going to hit that 1400 or hit that 1405. We're going to break a record. And now we're like, oh, look, we broke a record as a low, on the 13th. I think that was our record low. So it was 187 or whatever it was. So yeah, it's definitely, the excitement is weighing off, but it's something that we're going to be looking at. Now we're going to be looking at per month. Next year, we're probably looking at per year. But yeah, there's also monitoring going on from the installers. They have a program where they can see each different, like in each array, there's probably, I would guess about 10 or 15 smaller modules, and they'll be able to see if one fails. So they'll just come and fix it, or the wire is dislocated, or so they have that monitoring on a really micro scale as well.
Right.
And I think February or March or whenever spring shows up, there's a maintenance schedule. They'll go in and check all the wires, make sure the squirrel netting is good, and so that's something we'll have to experience yet too. So we're looking at about 20-25 year lifespan on this, and that doesn't concern me because I believe before then solar panels will become way more efficient. Now we're replacing the glass with more efficient, so the same amount of footprint maybe going to 250 or 300 kilowatt hours.
Right on. So as the last point here, as we wind this up, do you have words of wisdom, words of caution? What kind of farmer should be doing this? What kind of farmer shouldn't be doing this? And just advice for people considering solar and net metering and electrification and so on?
I think it's your personality type. I love efficiency. This is one of the investments I was looking into. I'm not able to grow my dairy herd as fast as I would like to, like everybody else. So I'm looking at putting an investment in that takes economy of effort. So putting this money into it and getting a return without actually having to do more chores to get more income. I think it's a real fit for dairy farms, but even more so for chicken barns that use a lot of electricity for cooling. And I think if anybody's building a barn, it doesn't cost very little, if anything, more for the trusses to get that extra cord on the top. And I think it's the way of the future. I really do.
Right on. Excellent. Well, I will, with that, we'll wrap it up. I really appreciate this. I appreciate your sharing. I understand you're also part of a tour. Previously, people have come to your site, and it's just so helpful to hear what other people are doing locally and so on. So once again, Joel, thanks so much and really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thanks.